Hello, friends. I'm so excited for this next Breath of Life conversation. I have two amazing intuitives. One you already know if you've been watching my show. Miss Allison is here to talk with us again about starseeds. We also have her fabulous podcasting partner, and I get to say this now. They're actually podcasters. So we also have Mandy Morton here with us today, also to talk about starseeds. She's a starseed herself, like Allie and myself, and we're just gonna once again geek out. This is part 2 of Stardust. I'm so excited. So without further ado, Mandy and Allie, how are you?
We're so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
So before we dive deep into starseeds here, and maybe we'll even like be able to segue into that, like you guys are podcasters now. Behind the Emerald Veil is out. There is 2 episodes already launched. How do you guys feel about that?
Oh, we're so excited. Like, this has just been something that I never thought I would be part of a podcast. Come on, let's get real. But it's been so exciting. And I'm like, I love it. And now that it's launched, I'm just like getting so much from it. And the feedback has been great. And yeah, we're just thrilled.
We're so excited. But I actually have to say, when I brought the idea to Allie, I was like, Allie, I keep getting this call to do like a podcast. She's like, I'll do it with you. I was like, yeah, you will. Like, before she could feel the fear, she like do it.
I swear that's my guides. Like, this has happened a few times since I've connected with my guides, where all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I'm like, what? Why? I would never do that. And then it's just like, oh my God. So I swear they're doing that on me.
You're like temporarily possessed by your guides just to get you to do stuff.
Exactly that.
So tell us a little bit about what the podcast is like aiming at. Like I after listening to the first couple of episodes, I can honestly say like some of the best conversation that I've heard on a podcast, and it's really great. You guys are so easy to listen to. It feels like I could listen to you guys all day. But what is it that you guys are like aiming for? Like, what is it that you want people to get out of it? What are the topics of conversation gonna be? Since there's only 2, I hate to like make assumptions about your guys' podcast.
Well, to be honest, the whole point of the podcast is geared towards the beginner or the curious intuitive. So somebody who's like, oh, like, I really resonate with some of the things that they're talking about. Like, but how do I open up my intuition? So for me, like my journey was so frustrating because I had to find my bits and pieces of information from so many different books, podcasts, Instagram influencers, like YouTube channels. It was like I was gathering information from all over the place. So we really want this podcast to be the one place where you can go to get all of your questions answered just through casual conversations and fun conversations. We're hoping that it will help other intuitives or curious intuitives just get a little bit more curious and maybe start to journey down their own spiritual awakening.
That's awesome. That definitely resonates as the best sort of reason. Like I feel like that's very similar to why I started the show and just wanting to talk about topics that people find interesting or fascinating, or maybe they know nothing about, but they're it'll plant a seed. And so I very much understand that for sure. Allie,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, and I was thinking like, I think part of it is breaking that stigma of what spirituality is, like the stigma of like, I'm a hippie or like there's this kind of big stigma about that, about, if you believe in these things or practice this or crystals and all these things. I know I had my reservations about it before, and my kind of like idea of what that type of person was. And I think like, I know Mandy and I are wanting to kind of even break through that, to be like, hey, we're your everyday girlfriends that, you know, will work a normal job and live a normal life, and have this woo type of belief, right? So I love that, what's kind of like just breaking that, because it's nothing like I think it's made to seem, right?
Yes, absolutely. Did it surprise you, Allie, how easy it was for you? Like, it feels, and maybe it's not easy, like, I don't know, I guess just listening to you guys, it feels so easy, such an easy conversation. Did that surprise you? Did you feel like, oh my gosh, like, why isn't this harder?
well, okay, so it's kind of funny because like, I don't know why, I just have this, like, I love to talk, and you get me in person and I can like talk at a party and make jokes and be the life of the party, but you put a camera or a microphone in front of me and I just like freeze. And so I remember like when Mandy and I first was like just doing like the intro type of thing, and press play, and it was like all of a sudden me just went to like my professional bank Alley. And so I call it my bank voice, right? My bank voice.
Bank Alley.
Yeah, we got Bank Alley, where I'm just, you know, like my voicemail, like, hi, thank you for calling thing. And so and so that's something I had to really work on, to kind of like separate, just letting go and not having to be like composed. So that definitely, and you can even hear it. I can hear it in the first episode where I kind of start off kind of very, you know, and then it's like I forget that we're recording, and that it's just like her and I sitting there talking like we do all the time. So yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm so excited for people to listen to this podcast and to just make all of the connections, because I know that it's really going to be a like jumping off point for so many people. And it's just so, like I said, it's just so fun to listen to. So for anybody who is curious about checking out that podcast, I know that you know, there's a never-ending amount in choices, but really seriously, do go listen to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. So all right, starseeds. Big topic. I know Allie and I covered a lot last time, but I am just so interested in this topic. It's been coming up so much for me lately. I actually just found, I don't even know if found is the right word, but I've been I'm taking this course by this woman who is very much a starseed herself, and and she's been going over like different like blood types and stuff like that, and she just like revealed that like Rh negative people are like more connected to the stars. If you're a B type, then you're like really connected to the stars. It's like there's different like what she's like found through her own like research and the readings that she's been doing. So I just was like, that makes sense. Like, you know, as I am like linking it for myself. And so I'm curious, do you guys know your guys' blood type?
I don't, and I want you to take my blood.
I want to know.
I was like, take my blood. Tell me what it is. I don't know.
I did know.
Did you?
I don't remember. Like when I was pregnant and like I had medical issues through pregnancy and stuff. So it was very, very top of mind. Like that was one of the things they checked, right? Was what my blood type was. But I don't remember. What is the most common one, Abby?
The most common is O positive. And then the most rare is AB negative.
Okay, well, I'm not that. I know I wasn't rare.
No, we all want to be rare.
Wait, does it say on my, it might say on my blood donor card.
Yeah, it would definitely say on your blood donor card. Yeah.
I'll have to look at that.
but so what she ends up saying is like, if you have A type, then your like soul has like committed to like earthly earthly magic, like tapping into the magic of the earth and
like crystals and
yes,
crystals,
yeah,
essential
crystals,
oils, like
fairies, elves, witchery, all that stuff. And if you're a B type, then you're connected to like, you know, the more galactic type missions and stuff like that. If you're O, then that's where most of the starseeds kind of come from, and like dealing with reconciling the different wars that have happened in the starseeds, or will be happening depending on which intuitive you speak with, which we're going to get into that. And like if you're AB, then you have like a combination of both like starseed galactic stuff and earthbound stuff. And then the RH factor like comes in. So if you're positive or negative, then if you're positive, then you're once again, like it's a more commitment to like earth magic and being kind of grounded and stuff. If you're a negative, then that talks about more like the starseeds galactic stuff. So of course I was like, I'm an A negative, then I'm like little bit of both. And which makes sense to me, especially now as I've like met new guides who are from other star, you know, places. And it's really interesting because I've talked to my mom about this, and I was like, I like had this like checklist of all these things that like RH negative people are, and I was like, check. Oh my god.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So apparently like RH negative people tend to run cold. The RH is actually like reptilian aspect of our blood, or like the alien version of our blood, because it doesn't like track back to the beginning of humanity, like the very, very beginning. And only 15% of the population is RH negative. So yeah, and it tracks back to Europe actually. And so like there, and in like starseed lineage in like intuitives, like there was a huge divergence where like our DNA like had a massive like shift and stuff, and that's where they're kind of thinking that the RH factor came in, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't all the way back to the start of civilization or anything like that. And just a really fascinating thing. People who are RH negative tend to have astigmatisms, which allows them to see multidimensionally. They tend to be more psychic. So they tend to be more intuitive. And it's really hilarious because in this course that I'm taking, there's so many of us who are negative. And I was like, there's only 15% of the population. They all ended up taking this stupid course.
That's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah. So definitely I'd be interested to know what your guys' blood type is. But so I don't know. I just find the whole aspect of like aliens have at some point like come into our existence, into this realm, right? Onto this planet to kind of mess with us and use us as, I don't even know what, like guinea pigs. I mean, you hear different stuff, right? Like you hear people say that, you know, we're an experiment, we've been manipulated. There have been starseeds that have been here since the beginning, talking to people and helping them with their technology and stuff like that. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Does that freak you out? Does that give you hope for the future? How does that make you guys move through life?
I love it. I love that it's part of our history. You know, I do fully agree that we share DNA with our galactic families, that, you know, with Lemuria, you know, like all these ancient civilizations, right, that we were part of. Like, I just feel like it's kind of like morphed from from that, right? So I truly feel like our blood types will lead us back to a certain type of star seed, and that, yeah, we've kind of like intermingled. And to me, it doesn't look like, I guess I look at like humanity it's kind of like we were created because of that other side, right? Like just because we have a veil over and we don't remember, it's like this earth, this creation, we were created just like any other civilization in space was created, right? So I think it's just, it seems super weird because we don't remember, right? We don't remember, and that is unique to Earth, that we don't remember that. So of course we're going to think, well, why would they touch us like that? But if we had our memory, it would be like, oh yeah, totally makes sense, right? Like that's just like, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
They're helping us.
Right? I have to agree with Ali. Like it doesn't scare me either. Now knowing like the bigger picture. And I think it's fascinating that we share DNA, or our DNA is linked back to our galactic, soul families and that sort of stuff. And what I find even more fascinating is that we can actually unlock some of that DNA to work with the ancient wisdom that we have as a galactic star being or star seed. And, knowing that we can do that and working towards that help us in this lifetime and help other people. But also like, it doesn't scare me to think that like aliens are coming onto our earth or anything, because I have the bigger awareness. And I also think that we probably agreed to that at some point. Like if I was going to be abducted, for example, my soul ultimately agreed to that experience. And, as scary as it might seem in a 3D, like 3-dimensional mind, in a 5-dimensional mind, it's like they're doing the work that we agreed upon to help unlock that DNA or unlock that deep wisdom or knowing, and so I can complete my mission.
Yeah, upgrade us, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is, Mandy, you touched on a point of like unlocking DNA for a greater purpose. Can you speak more to that? Like what in your understanding thus far is that? Like what is it do you feel like at some, like you have had some unlocking yourself? Do you think that comes from their interaction or through a combination of like that and the own work that you've put in? Like how do you feel like that
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually feel like it's a combination of all of it. Like my intention to ascend or to unlock or to vibrate higher, like to change my frequency. So I have that intention. And then there's that forward movement of me doing the work and putting the work in, the action to create the space in order to do that. But I can think of a couple experiences where I just laid down for a nap, and when you're in that zone where you're like, you're laying down, but you don't feel like you're sleeping because you're conscious, but you're resting. And then when you wake up, you're like, oh my God, was that a dream? Like that, I've had a few of those experiences where, I was aware that what was going on, like it felt like there was beings in my room, and I could feel all of this like shivers and vibration in my body. And like, it felt like I was like, essentially like having an out of body experience, in the sense where I was like, but I was consciously aware and I was not scared. There was no fear. I just knew there was like energy in my room, and that energy was in my body and upgrading me. Like I just knew that, I had that knowing that was what was happening. And then waking up from my nap and being like before I woke up from my nap, I was like, oh, this is what's happening. And then I woke up from my nap and I'm like, well, that was weird. Like, did I dream that? So I could say like probably a combination of all of that, like the intention, the work you put in, and then calling that in and having that experience.
Yeah. Ali, do you feel like you've experienced anything similar?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Mandy and I've talked about the nap things. Like I've noticed like since I've started down this journey that I will have times where all of a sudden it's like fatigue hits me hard. right? And like to the point I can barely keep my eyes open. And if I wasn't on this journey, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm like getting sick because like, what the heck is this? It hits you hard. And so then you go lay down and so many times I've had where same type of thing. Like I'm frustrated that I'm not falling asleep, right? Because I'm just like, can you just knock out? But it's like, but you're again in that weird space of just not being fully awake, but not fully asleep. And I've often throughout my whole life have felt footsteps in my room, somebody sitting on the bed. I don't know how many times I've, kind of woken up to be like, what kid is in my room? And then even just, that weird sense of like, you're in between like rounds or something, right? Like consciously, you're just not there. And that you're just aware that something's happening, something's going on. And whenever I get those urges where it's like, I can barely keep my eyes open, I'm like, oh, go time.
Time to get an upgrade.
We're doing it.
It's a level up.
Level up.
There's like this like reel for I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's like this reel of this voice of this woman who's like I think she was a contestant on like Family Feud or something like that, and she's like, I think it's like, Jesus Christ, activate.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it's kind of like, I feel like there should be a Starseed up level activate.
I love that one.
I feel like that would be so many people would be able to say that. Do you feel like the steps in that, when you could like feel steps in your bedroom or feel somebody sitting on your bed, do you feel like it was always like starseed people, aliens coming in to like check on you, or do you feel like sometimes it was them, sometimes it was your angels? Like could you, thinking back on it now, can you kind of differentiate? Was there a differentiation?
I think the only because I don't think it's always the starseeds. I definitely think it could be a loved one, it could be angels, it could be my guides, whatever it is very apparent. Like, my goodness, if they were trying to sneak up on me, it's like I can literally feel you. Like,
you're not very sneaky.
You're not very sneaky.
No.
No, and so I think over the years, I don't know exactly who, because like when I was younger, I'd have it all the time. And I don't really get the need to sit on my bed. I don't know if it's like to let me know that they're there. I don't know, but it's like always happening. But I definitely, like, as I've stepped into my gifts and opening myself up and on this journey, I have felt more sensations, right? So I've felt more either where my heart starts beating more, like I'm getting flutterings in, or like tingles down my body, right? So I've definitely felt more in my body, physical body, with this type of, coming into my room than I have before. So I guess that would be the difference.
Yeah, I find it the same. Like when it's like somebody sitting on the bed or footsteps or whatever, I feel like that's more spirit guide or loved one or whatever. But when it's like a being coming in to like upgrade you, like a starseed galactic type of thing, it's more of a frequency change within your body. Like it just feels different.
Yeah. Do you feel like do you feel the vibrations, like that upgrade in vibration? I
would say, like, for the most part, feel normal, but what really stands out to me, and I think it really scared me in the beginning, was having like my heart racing or even chest pain. I would have kind of these physical feelings that now I understand are part of me. It's either, the frequency, or it's me upgrading, it's symptoms, whatever it is. So I don't panic as much, but I remember in the beginning, like I would panic because I'd be like, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is happening here? Right? Or like, say I'm laying in bed and I'm like, I don't even know what the sensation is. It's like, I feel like this fluttering inside in my head, and I just feel this, and it's scary. If you don't know what's happening, it's literally, you're just like, what is going on with me, right? And so yeah, I can definitely feel like, it's not like every day I feel that, but I definitely, when I start to feel certain symptoms now, I can be like, oh, okay, this is what's happening there. It's ascension symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that.
Oh, go ahead, Mandy.
I was just going to say, we were talking about this in the workshop that I host this morning. We were talking about ascension and ascension symptoms. And I think that the heart, I don't know if you experienced that too, Abby, but one of the first ascension symptoms I experienced was the heart pain, like the chest pain. And I think a lot of us, like, that is just our physical body starting to vibrate differently or to acclimate. So the pains and the aches and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely, I don't feel like I vibrate. I don't feel the vibration in my body differently. I find my mindset and my perspective is much different than it used to be. Like I don't like live in a space of like fear or jealousy or gossip or that like type of life any longer. I've like been able to change my perspective and zoom up into a higher frequency. And I know I'm living there when I'm not affected by ego or fear or gossip or jealousy and like those feelings. That's how I know I live in it in a higher vibration, is because I don't I participate in the lower vibrations.
Yeah, I would say that the heart thing really does resonate for me. Like most people, I wear a Fitbit, or people wear Apple Watches and stuff that like tracks your heart rate. And I noticed that ever since I really like dug into this work and started doing this work all the time, my heart rate is always elevated. Like there's very few times when I'm like, quote, in a normal range. Like I'm either really far below or I'm really far up, like, in the one teens, not anything that I should be like worried about, like, but I definitely have noticed, I was like, okay, I at one point was like, solidly like 70s or 80s, just kind of like walking around. And like now I'm like solidly like always 110 or always, between 100 and 110. And at first it did upset me. I was like, I am a healthy individual. What is this? And my nurse brain like kicked in and I was like, okay, I'm like fat and I got healthy and I was like worried, and then realized like, no, I'm fine. It got bad enough that I was like checking my blood pressure and like, thinking I needed to run to the doctor. And I just thought, eventually I was like, okay, nothing untoward has happened to me. I'm still functioning on all levels, and so that resonates for me. I also feel like every once in a while, and not very often, because I struggle so bad to like get back, but probably once every 6 months or so. I actually just recently did it, and I won't do it again for a really long time. I'll like go outside without bubbling, and without like energy protecting. And that for me is like an even surefire sign of me being so much higher above in vibration and ascension, because it really does like hurt me physically to go out into the world without energetic protections. I get super fatigued. I get horrible mood swings because I'm picking up on everybody's stuff, and my body as like feels like a superconductor, and it's like meant to transmute people's stuff. And so I pick up on the stressed out mom in the grocery store. I pick up on the, abusive man on the bus type deal. And I pick up on the sadness of the homeless people underneath bridges. And I can't go anywhere without like armoring up energetically, because I do it. when I get back home, you know, after a day like that, where I was like, let me just test. It's like, I have to do all the things. I have to sage, I have to pray, I have to take a bath with Epsom salts. I have to like do a whole witchy woo ritual to get all that stuff off. And I the last time that I did try to do it was I didn't last for very long because I was going to work, and I got into the hospital, and it literally took me about 5 minutes before I had to like walk into the break room, and I was like, nope, can't do this. Not today. You know,
Totally.
And I know, Mandy, you've definitely experienced. I saw one of your stories of like you going out into the grocery store, you were grocery shopping, and I cracked up. I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone.
No, it's like, so, and I find that there's certain stores where there's like, you know, and I'm not going to name any stores in particular because I don't want to like, I guess like put people in a box, but there's certain stores where the majority of the shoppers are in like existing in a lower vibration. So when I find myself going into those stores, if I don't do an energy protection, I am leaving super frustrated. I'm like annoyed, I'm grumpy, and I'll come home and my husband will be like what happened? Like, you left normal and now you're like mean. And I'm like, oh, I didn't do an energy protection. but I was like, and I almost feel like it's so extreme in the sense where you have to bubble yourself after every store, because I had to go to 3 different stores that day, and I was starting to get like it was like wearing down my protection. Like, it was like, okay, I should have bubbled after I left too, and then went into the other store, and then I didn't, and I could feel myself getting annoyed, like I was getting triggered, and I could feel like the anger bubbling up, and just like I was starting to feel really tired and exhausted because it's energetically draining when you're doing that sort of stuff. So I had to remind myself, and it's hard to remember to do that. And for the beginner intuitive, like we talk about this in episode 2, but the whole idea of going into your mind to put an energetic bubble around your energetic body, like, just is so ridiculous to say out loud, but it's like,
it works.
It works. And I remember totally casting it off. Like, when I first started learning about energy, I was like, that's like ridiculous. Like, that's not going to help. I would rather have a crystal in my pocket than energetically bubble myself in my imagination. But it's like the opposite. Like, it's really like 101 base level stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Allie, do you suffer from the same sort of problems being brought down amongst the mortals?
Oh gosh, I'm like, so much. And it's so funny because before I even went down this path, like, I remember at work, I would constantly get in trouble for people always being in my office. Like, it was kind of, and it's not like where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so popular. Like, it's like, no.
She is, you guys.
No.
She is.
And it was something that I started to notice, like, from branch to branch, like office to office, if I switched type of locations, it would happen again. And I remember the last location that I started working at, I was like, what the heck is this? Because it was so bizarre. Like, it wasn't like I was like, it was more like, okay, this is weird. Like, why do people I keep getting in trouble for constantly having people in my office? Like, I'm talking all the time and I'm like, they're in my office. They come to me, right? I'm not going to them, right? And once I started to kind of like tiptoe into this, I started to realize, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I take on their energy. Right? People would come to me to dump their stuff. They would come and tell me something that they're angry about. And I would literally realize I would then all of a sudden be angry with them. And I was taking this on. I was absorbing this energy. And it was just like so eye-opening that this was the actual thing. I have an example just recently, now that I'm aware, and I should have known better. I went to visit a family member in the hospital and I was just rushed and I totally forgot. I was like, I'm going to bubble myself before I enter the hospital. And I ended up leaving there and I was crying. I was so overwhelmed. And it wasn't because of the situation or anything like that. I was just so overwhelmed with the energy that I had walked into, that I was just like, oh, it was one of those, it's like, sometimes you need to experience that to realize how much the bubbling does work. Right.
Yes.
And that was like, to me, I was like, okay, not again, we're not doing that one again.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, people have asked me, I mean, even some of our soul sisters have asked me, like, how do you do it? It's like, and that's exactly it. Like, there's no way I could go to work every day, you know what I mean? And that's why, because, you know, people will, you know, ask, you know, how do you remember all the time? How are you so good at it? And I was like, at this point, it's like a set it and forget it thing, you know, and it's necessary because people have a lot of stuff. And at this point, I'm like, you know, where it's like trying to, if I didn't, it would be so overwhelming that it would feel like I was drowning. You know what I mean? Like a huge tidal wave, huge tsunami just of emotions and energy like coming over me. And it would feel like I was drowning. And so I do sometimes wish, you know, exactly like you were saying, Allie, of like, why can't other people feel this? Because I feel like if they could feel it, and maybe that's part of why we do what we do as intuitives, right? And the work that we do with working with the clients and people and helping them work through their stuff, so that they can get to some sort of a place of where we are, right? Because I feel like if more people did, people would be less angry. People would be less angry.
True.
They would be
so
more
true.
Understanding. There would be more compassion, you know.
Could you imagine if everybody in the store that you were in had an energy bubble around them? There would be, they wouldn't be picking up on like the energy of everybody else. So everybody would have their energy in their own space and they would keep it to themselves. Like there wouldn't be so much like frustration and anger. But could you like
contamination?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? What a nice word. Yeah. But I think that's like, it's too bad that not everybody knows to do this. Like Abby, where you work in the hospital, like there's so much trauma and, you know, despair and all that sort of stuff. So some of your colleagues who aren't aware that they can bubble their energy, like they're probably feeling it and wearing that stress and not like, it's really a shame that they don't know how to manage that. And then they're probably living in, you know, a lower vibration reality because of it, not understanding that it's not theirs to carry.
Yeah. And I find that it's what makes me laugh is that people will ask, well, how do you always have like really like decent days, like really good days? I work in an ER and, you know, you just expect that people are going to come in for either really serious stuff or really ridiculous stuff. It's one or the other. and I typically have like really good days. Like people really like working with me because they don't see as much of the crap stuff, you know? And if they do, then you know, it doesn't affect them as much. And I 100% lay it down to, it's because of my energy. I literally, like, my aura and my energy expands out so far that like people who are of a lower vibration don't want to come around me, you know. It's like it's like magnets, you know, like negative energy and my positive energy, they don't mix. You know. So it's I liken it to that, and I just think it makes me wonder about, as we keep ascending, like how much more is this going, like, do you guys ever think about that, of like, if I become a fifth dimensional being, like what does our energy bubbles look like?
That's so funny. I haven't really thought about that, but I often feel like I already live in a different world than some people, because like some things it just doesn't even enter my realm of thought. Or like, for example, wearing a mask. Like I already feel like I'm living in the future where we don't need to wear masks, because I always forget, even though I always forget to either like bring it with me or to put it like I'm about to walk in the store. I'm like, oh shoot, like I'm not even You know what I mean? Like there's certain things like that where I feel like I'm already living in a different realm than the people who are living in fear. So
yeah. Do you guys feel like I should phrase it like, I should ask the question like this. I know that Allie, we had sort of started talking about it the last time, and I'm curious about what your guys' thoughts are on it, of what it means to be a higher dimensional being. Like, we know that starseeds, for the most part, are all higher dimensional beings, right? They're not living on 3D planets. They are not in a 3D mindset for the most part. What are your guys' thoughts on that? How do you feel like, when you think about that, like how an Arcturian is, that, you know, as a 7th dimensional being, that they even have moments of like frustration? Like, do you think that some of the starseeds are like looking down on us and they're like frustrated and they're like, oh shit, that's a 4th dimensional thought. Like, I can't be here.
I think they are. I do think they are. I think I do feel that we are in a time, we're here for a reason, that humanity is shifting, and this is something that I think that our galactic friends are watching and helping and trying to move along more. And I do think that there's some frustration there, as we are, you know, maybe we're not going as fast enough as they want, to try to raise everybody's vibration. How, you know, humanity is getting really stuck in that density, right? That fear density, especially right now. We are being tested big time, to try to use discernment and try to stay away from fear. I think that's one of the things that I've noticed the biggest is for me, is knowing that I'm in a different, I vibrate in a different frequency, is the lack of fear, right? I was consumed with fear before going down this road. I was diagnosed with anxiety. I still have anxiety, but it's different, because everything, I would be like, oh my gosh, like the news said this, and I would just be completely fear-based. And now I'm like, it's so crazy, because it just like rolls off, right? But yeah, I do think that they do get frustrated at times, right? And oh my God, I even know my guide gets frustrated with me all the time, because I'm so stubborn, and he's just constantly like, could you hurry up? And so for sure, I think they get frustrated, but they get frustrated out of love. I think that's the difference. It's not like they're frustrated and they're mad and they're angry. It's more like this kind of frustration, like, oh, I just want her to succeed. And it's all coming from a love-based type of thing. So there is a difference, right?
Yeah. Do you, so on that note, I know that we talked about that we were gonna, this is a perfect segue into kind of like the history of like the different starseed realms. As we know, there are a bunch of them, so many that we don't even know all of them. Some people have been really like well in tuned and like been able to channel and stuff the different galactic histories, and one of which is that there is, or was, depending on who you talk to, a huge galactic war in the Orion, in this like section of the universe, because Orion's belt holds one of the largest like portals, and that help you access, you know, places higher than the 7th dimension and all that stuff. And so do you guys believe that? Do you guys believe that such beings of higher consciousness and such evolution can get into wars? Do you feel like those wars have already happened? Do you feel like they're coming? Do you, like, when you think of like quantum time, does that like just bend your brain so much and you're like, forget it, I can't even, I can barely handle myself?
Yeah, I believe, okay, so a lot of that stuff bends my mind. So I haven't like allowed myself to really go down that portal. That's a good one to say, into that portal. But I definitely believe there's polarity and duality, you know, everywhere, not just on this planet, but on all planets and in all galaxies and universes. So where there's light, there's darkness, right? Where there's high, there's low. When there's happiness, there's sadness. So like, I feel like, yes, there's definitely, I believe there's been wars and galactic wars, but, you know, light versus dark, kind of, you know what I mean? High vibration versus lower vibration, sort of, just so that we can bring the light to the shadow. That's like, I feel like the purpose around whatever like war we would be discussing, right? Here on Earth, wars are more about power, right? But I think the intention of a war in a galaxy is a lot different. And it's more about bringing light to the darkness, or raising vibration, or whatever it could be. I don't know. What do you think, Allie?
No, I completely agree. I think wherever there's light, there is shadows, and the polarity, they're not immune to that either, right? The whole point of our souls and all this, you know, galactic lives and all these planets to live on is to evolve and to learn. And we can't learn unless we have polarity. I was actually thinking of that this morning on my drive, and you know, you hear about people saying like new earth, fifth dimensional earth, and it's just going to be love and all of that. And I was trying to imagine like living my life with just love. And I was like, you know, and thinking like, oh, I so want to go there. But then realizing, you know, there's beauty even just where we are right now. Yes, there's a lot of hurt and a lot of hatred and that density that is not fun to be around, but it also shows us to appreciate the beauty and the love. If we didn't have those hard moments in life, we wouldn't recognize the beautiful moments in our lives, right? Because it would always be that. So it was like, yeah, this is my morning drive to go get my tea, that I'm having these deep like thoughts, because I what's wrong with me? But it literally was my ride. And I was just like, oh my God, like going into these things. And you know, because I was just thinking like, you know, like people have difficult times and we have these difficult times. And I was just like, yeah, like going to new earth and fifth dimension, we wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. I'm like, that would be so nice. And then it was just like, but hey, like I wouldn't appreciate the good times, because that's all there would be.
Do you feel like that's part of the reason why like we have become what we have become here on Earth? Because I just recently read somewhere that like Earth was meant to be a 7th dimension planet, and through the different, I mean, some people would probably say, you know, well, it was the original sin, right? I don't necessarily believe that, but through our history, we've just dropped down to a 3rd dimensional planet, consciousness, whatever. Do you think that in some ways that's like the grand design maybe of source, that like throughout the galaxy you do have these planets that have dropped down because of that duality, so that places that do hold, because I don't know if you even believe that there are planets that are true utopias, but that if they do exist, like it would be because there are planets like ours where you can incarnate and be of a lower frequency, that's how those places exist.
I don't know, to be honest. I think I definitely know that we have these different worlds at different dimensions, as you know, we need to learn each dimension, right? Like that's all part of evolving and learning. And so whether that means you spend thousands of lives in a 3rd dimension, whether that's Earth or a different 3rd dimension planet, right? It's not necessarily you're just at Earth learning the 3rd dimension, but it's kind of funny. It's like a video game, right? Once you beat that level, you level up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's just like, it depends how long you want to be at the 3rd dimension and how many times you want to get through it. And, you know, obviously like picking Earth is probably the hardest level of that video game, but you're going to learn the most from it, right? But yeah, so I think like obviously there's different, I don't know about it being a higher dimension and then dropping down. I could see that happening. I could see that just with humanity and how things have kind of gone awry, you know, like I could see that happening.
Yeah, because when you put free will into the picture, I mean, it could go either way. because we all have free will. So as a human being, you can choose to live in a higher vibration, or you can choose to live in a lower vibration. So I think when you put free will into the mix, it could have gone one way or the other, and this is just the way that it ended up going, because you also put in hierarchy, and you put in divine masculine and power, and money and all that sort of stuff. So I think that because free will is part of this planet, that is just the way that it ended up going. I think if it wasn't meant to go that way, maybe there would have been divine intervention a little bit sooner, but I think kind of it can't continue to go that way, which is why divine intervention is kind of happening now.
Do you feel like the divine intervention is strictly like source based, like like the conception of God stepping in or source stepping in, or do you feel like that divine intervention could be anything that's just higher than us?
I sort of feel like it's a mixture of both. You know what I mean? Like maybe the good of the intervention, like it's all kind of like due to love, right? And to like the intention of being in a better space or in a higher vibration, which is like the point to get closer to source, right? So I think it's just other beings or councils or whatever working on behalf of source, perhaps, or with source. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you guys feel like the Galactic Federation is potentially one of those bodies, or do you feel like they're just a collection of beings that have evolved past that, have kind of their own agenda, and it's once again a free will thing?
I think that they're part of the process. I think I feel like the Galactic Federation, I think I think they're part of it, a main part of it. That's my opinion. But I think that they also work with different, like the Federation is like all beings from all different galaxies working together as one with one agenda to help Earth, and they kind of create the rules, I guess, galactically. But yeah, I think they're a big part of it. I believe so.
Allie?
Yeah, no, definitely. The Galactic Federation is made up of representatives of all of these different species and starseed groups, right? So they're all representatives there, and it's more of like a governance to, kind of like it's like a governance to kind of keep order within the galaxy, right? Type of thing. Now, I do think that different groups like the Palladians or the Arcturians have different roles on what they are helping humanity with. But yeah, that they maybe take like a lead in a certain area, but that they all kind of have their own jobs on what they're doing to try to kind of help humanity move along right now.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like because we don't know as like humans, because we don't know of other planets that hold life at this time, like serious life, that we tend to make everything be about Earth? Or do you feel like truthfully, like it really, like Earth is just that big of a player, and humans as a species are just that big of a player in the galactic tapestry? Because I kind of feel sometimes I wonder about, like, is it our arrogance that because like we can't say like planet P693 has this sort of anamorphous being on it, that we tend to once again like sometimes even energetically like revert back to when we thought the world was flat and we were the center of the universe, and we kind of energetically go, the Galactic Federation just like loves Earth so much that we are like, I mean, we haven't even been able to seriously get off world. Like they can't possibly believe that we're going to be that, any sort of a threat to anything that's higher at this point. You know what I mean? So like, do you think it's our own energetic arrogance that we're like,
no, I think that because I think that's unfair, because we're not the same level as other beings, right? We have this human amnesia, and right there, that makes us special, because we are going through our life lessons not knowing what is like where we came from, not knowing what is out there. Where if we didn't have that human amnesia, it would be even playing field type of thing, right? Like there wouldn't be so much focus on Earth. And so for like humans to be like, oh, we're the only ones here or in this Earth, right? It's because we don't know any better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the sense of like us traveling to another, galaxy, we because of this amnesia, we don't know that technology. We don't know it. So it's kind of like we're at a party and we're not in on the joke in a way, right? Like we're not in on the joke. They all know what's going on, but we don't know. So of course, like, and I've always thought, like, if somebody thinks that there's no other living, and I've thought that before I even went down this journey as a child, as a teenager, I've always said, there's no way we are the only ones in this infinite galaxy. And if anybody thinks we're the only living beings on a planet in this infinite galaxy, that's just crazy. That's just, to me, like, there's just absolutely no way. So, so I think it's not that I think we are important in the sense because I believe there's no other planet like us and no other kind of existence of having the amnesia like we do. No.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, definitely. Mandy, do you feel like there is going to be like a turning point? Like we talk about like the age of Aquarius and people go back and forth about, has that time already started? It hasn't. We're going into it. I know that in our collective Soul Sister group, we've constantly been kind of developing our own thoughts as a group about whether or not New Earth is here or not, and we kind of all settled on a very similar thought process about it. But if you could flesh out your thought on it, what would it be about a turning point for humanity?
Well, okay, so I kind of see it like collectively and then individually. So I feel like you can live in New Earth as an individual simply by just ascending and raising your vibration so that you're looking at things from a higher perspective. So individually. And then I think collectively, as every individual raises their vibration, we'll get there eventually. But I have like a sense it's going to be a slow progression, in the sense where like all of the babies that are being born this year, for example, as they become adults, and then all of like, say, our parents and, our colleagues or peers or whatever, as we start to like, pass away or pass on, that will just be like a completely different vibration of the collective. And then it'll just continue to rise, because all the babies that are coming in, not with as much amnesia and already raised in a higher frequency. So that's just going to continue to go. And as they grow up and then we die off, like eventually, Earth, it'll be New Earth. But I think we can get there individually. And then we're going to see a division for a period of time where like some of us are living in New Earth already, and then some of us are still living in fear and in a lower vibration in the older world, right? And then eventually, when we all die and they come in, and it'll just be a different experience.
It kind of sounds like you're saying that it's like a group project, and like there's a few of us that are gonna like make sure that everybody gets an A.
We're doing the hard work. We're putting in the overtime and the extra hours, and we're doing the extra research. You're so right. And that's the kind of student I was.
I definitely I was like, you know what, you could either like jump on this gravy train or you can get off, but we're getting an A, damn it.
I was the follower. I was like, tell me what to do.
She's like, I just sat there and got it.
Exactly.
I think it's hilarious because I feel like as an energy worker, Allie, like you're now like in the very position of the person who's like you're pulling those people forward, you know, and you're helping bring that about. And so like
it is
does
odd.
does that like on some small piece of your soul go like, no?
Yeah, all the time.
I'm not small.
All the time. I'm like, it's like pushing. It's like this push, right? Like where I'm just kind of like, oh, you know, like, I don't know, where you just kind of stay. I don't know. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. And even being in the spotlight, right? Like that, all of that, like, I'm just like, I was always the one in the classroom that, you know, blended into the wall if I could. I didn't want to tell people. I didn't want to be the lead. Even now in my job, I'm like, I don't want to be the lead of any project. just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But yeah, it is kind of like different now to kind of be, to some people, leading in a way and helping them progress on their journey. It's that's one of my growths, one of my, you know, things that I need to grow on and learn. So, and that's why my guides are frustrated with me, because I take forever.
I'm sure that like they could say that about all of us. I know mine definitely can. If you guys could like kind of tap into your higher selves and your starseed guides and ask them, what's the one piece that they think that we should know, like one piece of advice or something that we need to know, what do you discern from that? Like what do you guys get?
I always get to find like your middle ground, to not be reactive, you know what I mean, to instead of reacting, to just sort of like try to zoom out and see things from the higher perspective, or try to understand the bigger picture or the bigger lesson that's at play there. So I've always been told to just kind of be in my middle space and not react into fear, or, you know, try to spew like love and whatever, like just allow it to kind of unfold and be as is, and just be right in the middle of all of it. I mean, that sort of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Allie?
Yeah, definitely what Mandy, that's been a big, you know, learning opportunity for me. And I think that is huge for humanity as well. People getting to that point of what Mandy is talking about, kind of having that higher perspective. I do feel like this real push from my guides, just about like spreading love. Like, it just sounds so simple, but in the sense of like coming from that love-based thought, and moving through life in that type of energy. And really it's, you know, it's not that there's not going to be tough times or anything, but it's like having that, being like, okay, like understanding and compassion, and, you know, kind of like between that duality of fear and love, right? And so I feel this like really big push about kind of like spreading that love energy, and again, like that higher perspective. I think having a higher perspective helps with any situation. If I feel like I'm getting kind of like into a 3D situation that we're going to get into, because we live here, we have lives, right?
Yeah.
If I feel like I'm kind of being pulled into that, like what has helped so much is being able to like pull myself out and have that higher perspective and just kind of see it as a whole, and then come from it from kind of like a love centric place, that I can start to view, whether it's somebody being mean to me or whatever it is, I can kind of view it from that part of my brain that with the love, that it's kind of like, no, these are their lessons, or this is showing me this. And so not kind of like going down that fear base or that anger type thing. So I definitely feel this pull of like, I feel like we're on earth to have these tests done, because like on the other side, all it is love. So I feel like we're on earth and we're in this place to be challenged and all these things, to literally the end game is to bring it back to love. Right. So it's like, yeah, to always come back to
easiest and hardest lesson. Right.
Totally. Right. And like self-love, like that's probably my biggest challenge this lifetime, right? Is learning to love myself. And I think that's for a lot of people, to fully and truly love yourself. That is the biggest challenge. Because once you can truly and love yourself, then loving everybody else just comes easy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. That's a perfect place to end. I just love that so much. And so, oh gosh, guys, I know that we could literally talk about this stuff forever. Like we just barely like scratched the surface of all the different things. And we didn't even get into talking about types or any of that stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to figure this out. You guys, thank you so much for watching Breath of Life Conversations. I am so honored and just privileged to be here with you guys, conversation after conversation. I am going to put all of the information that you need to follow and book sessions with each of these lovely ladies. I highly suggest that you do it. They're so amazing. They've both helped me out so much. Whenever you guys need any information, I will put, like I said, all that stuff down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us always. I am so grateful to all of it. So as always, thank you so much once again. Thank you to Mandy and Allie, and we will see you next time for the next Breath of Life Conversations. Bye, friends.